All right, here we go. Welcome to the Dear Son podcast. This is a safe space for men to have vulnerable conversations about the fatherhood journey. Sometimes those conversations are light, sometimes they're heavy, changes from guest to guest. I never know until we start the show. Tonight, I got a good feeling about it, but I'm not going to spoil it. We're going to let it ride. I got my guy in the building, in the studio, which is my preference, Mr. James Johnson. Welcome to the Dear Son podcast. How are you, my brother?
I'm good. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you for letting me in. I appreciate it.
Yeah. The door was wide open, man.
Yeah.
The door was wide open. I like the energy already.
Yeah.
So let's see where this goes, man. James, where you from? Where's home? Where's like your earliest memories of childhood? And then we'll kind of pull that thread and kind of progress to your fatherhood journey to where you are today.
Yeah. Okay. Born and raised Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
Louisiana native. Literally, like I say, born there, raised there, grew up there. Funny thing about my childhood is we moved around a lot. So we traveled a lot. And part of that was Houston kind of got intermingled in, you know. So I lived in Houston a few times as a kid, but I'd say 90% was Shreveport, Louisiana.
Shreveport.
So, yeah.
What's Shreveport like, man? I had a guest on not too long ago that was from Monroe, Louisiana, and I didn't know if that was city or rural or what. What's Shreveport like? I see it. That's I-20, right?
Yep.
I see it on the sign, but we never made it that far. What's life in Shreveport like?
Back then versus today is night and day.
Okay.
You know, back then you have to understand it was just like everything you see on TV about old Compton almost, man.
Gotcha.
Like
wow.
Gangs and drugs flooded in the 80s.
So it was that then, but not now?
Well, now it's kind of it's a ghost town, to be honest.
Wow.
And I hate to say that about my city, but it's absurd, man. Like all of the buildings are run down, closed down.
Wow.
Opportunity is not there as much as it used to be. There's a push right now to try to, shake it back, shake the city back and bring it back. But the crime is so absurd, man. They set a new murder record this past year. So still on that, got to change that mentality, which is just a conversation we kind of having right now because of the young males there are misguided.
Yeah.
And so it's needed. It's very much needed back there.
Yeah. I definitely want to get to that because I know we had some brief conversations about what you want to do in that space in terms of, affecting your influence with kind of mentoring these boys and giving them some direction.
Yes.
But what was your family dynamic? Did you have brothers and sisters? Were your both parents in the house? What was that dynamic?
I did. I had I was raised majority by my mom.
Okay.
A single parent home. My parents divorced when I was, I don't know, maybe 2 years old.
Wow.
So at that point, my mom was on her own. I had an older brother. My mom had a daughter, and then married my dad, had my older brother, then had me. Then once they divorced years later, she had my baby sister. So in my household, which that's a whole nother story because my older sister was raised by an aunt. Okay. So in my household, it was my mom with her 3 children, and then her sister and her 2 children were all in the same house. Poverty stricken, man. They had to split incomes to share resources so that we could all make it, to be honest. So I have a female cousin and a male cousin that grew up like my brother and sister in the house. Gotcha. So there was me and my brother and then my cousin and my cousin, 2 sisters raising 2 sets of kids.
My cousin, my other cousin,
cousin
brothers, brother cousins.
Right.
Was that par for the course for your environment, for your neighborhood, or was it noticeably different how you live versus how the people around you were living?
I think it was a reflection of what half and half. The city was split down the middle, but I didn't know that. I didn't know we were poor till I got older. I thought I lived in the big city, the hustle and bustle. I really did. We thought Shreveport was a metropolis.
Wow.
I kid you not. So once we got older, and then you started to, like, by the time I made it to 6th grade, middle school changed my whole everything in the city.
How so?
Because K through 5th grade, I probably went to 17 schools. Easy.
17 schools?
Yeah, easy. Like every elementary school in Shreveport, and then I did about 3 or 4 schools in Houston. So that's how much we moved. It was like times got hard, we moved. Times got hard, we moved.
Yeah.
And 2 women in the house. So, it wasn't, I'm not going to say they didn't do the best they could. But that male intestinal fortitude, it was different because pressure hit, pressure. It was time to move.
Yeah.
We'll go start over somewhere else. So that's kind of what that ended up being. So once I hit middle school, I had a 5th grade teacher kind of pull me under her, I say coattail, but she pulled me. She was like, hey, you made different. This is what we're going to do. She went and took it upon herself to get me tested to send me into a magnet school. Wow. So now the benefit of that is no matter where you live in the city, you can go to that same school.
At what point did you realize the impact of not having that male presence in the house? And this is not a father bashing platform. Right. This is not by any stretch a woman, mother, single parent platform, bashing platform, because they do phenomenal. I mean, women, I don't know. I don't know how y'all do it, but shout out to women.
Right.
But at what point did you realize that, like, this is something different, something ain't right?
Well, the weird thing is I got a dose of it every summer, because my brother and I, we stayed the summer with my dad in Houston every summer. So I'm getting a teaspoon of it, but all it's doing is highlighting what I don't have back home. You understand? The other 10 months of the year. So I'm in Houston 2 months a year with my dad and my brother. And then me and my brother have to go back to this. My dad was pretty well off by the standards that I was living in back in Shreveport. So he's in Houston. He's married. He had 2 more sons, my other 2 little brothers. They in a structured household, 2 vehicles. They have 2 incomes. They own a home. Meanwhile, I go back to Shreveport. We in the projects. It's me, my mom, my aunt. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm seeing both. So I'm being reminded every summer of what it could be and what it's supposed to look like. And then you're trying to give me the male guidance in 2 months. And then
crash course.
Boom, right, crash course. Then I go back home, and that's kind of like we on the city bus. You understand? We didn't have vehicles, and so now it's 2 different dynamics. Yeah. So now you're trying to cope with it, and again, the blessing, if you will, is back then you don't know that you're in poverty. You don't know that it's supposed to be better. So the self-pity that you'll see more frequent today didn't exist back then. And I really credit that to my mom and my aunt. Gotcha. Was they created an environment that you didn't feel like we were struggling and we sad and we down. Yeah. We thought we were living like kings. I kid you not.
It's always strong Black women stepping up. So when you went to visit your dad for those 2 months out the summer, do you think that hurt more than harmed you? And not necessarily his influence, but like, was there a resentment because, you know, like you get a taste of it, but then you got to go back to reality? How did you process that? And what age is it? This is like since the divorce up through.
Yeah, like my mom and dad divorced when I was 2. Yeah. I'm 44 now. So when I was 2 and they divorced, he immediately married my stepmom. Wow. Like, I'm talking 6 months later, if I'm not mistaken. Jeez. Within the year, they were married, right? So my whole life, I've known her. Like, that was my stepmom. Like no beef, no shade. Yeah. We got along well. You know, when we came out there, I felt like she welcomed us as her own. Yeah. And I applaud her for that, because, you know, that could be shade attached to that.
That can get tough.
So she brought us in. We stayed there. But I can honestly say the only 2 times that I really felt resentment was, one was 1 year, the older of my younger 2 brothers was graduating from high school. They threw him a big party. And he's, to give you some context, he's, I'd say maybe 8 years younger than me. Okay. So somewhere from 6 to 8 years younger than me. So you have to realize if he's 16 leaving high school, I'm 21, 22 years old or more. So in the party that they giving, they have these pictures posted everywhere. So now I'm finding out about vacations that were taken that I didn't know nothing about. You know what I mean? They went to Disney World, you know what I mean? And they went to California and they did this. He took us on a trip to California, but we didn't get that. By the time we came in for the summer, it was kind of like we were going to Astroworld. You know what I mean? Wow. So that... Wait.
Astroworld is a thing? It's in Houston?
Yeah, Astroworld used to be the theme park, the Six Flags Park in Houston growing up. Like Astroworld, the Astrodome, that was the big thing in Houston. Like it was like the little Six Flags here in Dallas. It was like that times 2. It was dumb.
Yeah.
But they bought it out, shut it down, and turned it into this big metroplex of shopping and investments that they have now.
Yeah.
But as a kid, man, Astroworld, you right there with the Papados that everybody go to off 635 next to the dome right there.
Yeah.
Wasn't no NRG Stadium and all this. They had the Astrodome, and then across the highway you had Astroworld, roller coasters and such. So
all right, so I'm gonna keep it light and expose myself. The only association that I had with Astroworld was Travis Scott,
Man,
his album.
that's
and
crazy.
I thought that was just him
Nah.
saying that this is my city.
Nah, that's what was going on in Houston, because they got the NASA, so that everything was started as Astro, that the Astros, Houston Astros.
Yeah.
So everything was on that. They played in the Astrodome.
Yeah.
So that was our thing. He slid us over to the Astrodome. Astroworld for the little theme park.
Yeah.
One summer we went to California and visit my uncle. So when I find out y'all kind of took these trips, I kind of feel like me and my dad need to sit down and have a conversation. But then I let it go, because I was kind of like, what do you do?
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
True.
Adult life, looking back, I saw a little shade where if we there in the summer, my stepmom and her mom would go shopping and come back with a couple of little things for my little bros and kind of be like, look what your grandmother bought you.
Yeah.
Adult hindsight, looking back.
Yeah.
I can't go in and say I bought these two something and didn't buy these two something, so I push it off on my mom. I get all of that. That's the politics you play with the blended family as you get older. You know what I mean? The only other, not to get too heavy, the only other resentment I had was when I was 10, my older brother was 2 years older than me. He got killed at 12. Yeah. So I was 10, my brother was 12. He got killed.
Wow.
Trying to run and catch a city bus because we didn't have any vehicles at the house. So a drunk driver come around the corner and kill him. My dad got 2 vehicles at the house in Houston. Perfect family at that time. It's easy to fall into that resentment at that point. Like, man, if we had a car, I kind of slipped into that for a little while. Like, man, if we had a car, this wouldn't have happened, because he's not trying to run and go hustle and get the city bus to get to the crib.
Yeah.
Well, thankfully, that didn't really latch on to my spirit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I went through that briefly, let that go, moved on. But that's honestly the only 2 times I could say I kind of looked at what they had going on and had resentment.
Yeah. How do you you were 10, he was 12.
Yes.
How do you get to a place of emotional or just maturity to let that go, to not let that fester? Because that can really shape the rest of your life, and rightly so. I mean, very traumatic event. And if you're open, I'm interested in how like that period was for you immediately after. I've never experienced anything like it, so I don't want to speak.
No, it's fine. Right.
Like how does the processing of that at that stage of life impact you? Because you were at a new school, right? You got into the good school,
right? I was already at the school at that point. Like by the time he died, I was 7th going into 8th grade.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So now maybe in 8th going to 9th, something like that. But now it absolutely changed everything. Like I was the little brother. Yeah. You know what I mean? So everywhere we went, people thought we were twins, but we 2 years apart. Like I always been a bigger dude. Yeah. So I was his size, but 2 years under him, So what happened was immediately once he passed, it shook me. It really molded me, who I am now, because all I knew was I wanted to be who he was and what he was doing. Wow. Well, my brother he was in the streets. He was gang banging, and all the gang banging was tough in Shreveport. Like everybody left California and came to Shreveport in that time, and they brought the 5.0s and the crack and the gangs and all of that from Kansas City and California came to Shreveport. So now they came into these neighborhoods that didn't have any of this going on and start staking claim. So now you banging this side banging this. Well, I was in sports. Gotcha. So sports kind of had my distraction, my attention. My brother was head heels. He was in it. He was with it. So me seeing that, we jokingly played with it, but he was serious. You know what I mean? And he was only 12 years old. And that's ridiculous to even hear me say that he was serious and he was 12. Yeah. So was that a common age? And again, I'm not trying to speak from a place of utter ignorance, but like that's the thing that you see in the movie, and you're like, nah, not it's
12,
real.
not 10.
as soon as you can go outside, you're exposed to it. When you start to be outside playing, now you're not doing or doing the things that the older guys doing. You're not doing drive-bys and what have you, but you're not selling drugs yet, hopefully.
Right.
Now, there were a couple of cats that early, the old heads kind of laughed, like, because, back then there were rules and guidelines to, you didn't mess with women and babies.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then you had the little knuckleheads that just wouldn't stop. So they jokingly kind of brought them in, like, man, let me show you some things because you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
So they kind of, them being so persistent, got them allowed into things earlier than they should have been. But again, I feel like that's kind of glorifying it, but they paid big consequences for such. So now I'm so clingy and running up behind my brother and want to do everything my brother doing. When he was taken, I was clingy. I remember having a clingy feeling. And luckily, my cousins was right there. My aunts, my uncles, they were right there. So they kind of, it felt like every day somebody was coming to scoop me up, like, let's go do this today. And I think that saved me because I would have been in them streets real tough, looking to fill that void, you know what I mean? So because they were right there and sports, and I had a close-knit family at school, man. Like my partners that I met in the 6th grade, they're my brothers right now. Wow. The whole entire crew. Yeah. We went to 6th through 8th together, then we went 9th through 12th together. Then a few of us even went to college together.
That's dope.
So that saved me, man. Like my network dumb because of that. Yeah. Male and female. So once all of that kind of molded and I got heavier and heavier into sports and band and music and ROTC and all this other stuff in high school, that I felt like if my brother was there, a lot of the decisions I was making on my own, I wouldn't have made. So I don't want to say I'm grateful my brother got taken away from me, but I'm absolutely a different person today than I was when my brother was around me, if that makes sense. I felt like him being removed allowed me to flourish, and I became my own person. I got my own thought process. I was mindless. Like if somebody walked up to me and be like, what do you like? What do you want to see? I look at my brother. Like, he bought this shirt. I want that same exact shirt in that same color. You see what I'm saying? And it's like, it frustrated him. Like, nah, what you want to do? He started asking me first. Like, what you going to pick? And I'm going to pick something different. Nope, because I'm not going to pick this because you're going to pick this, and then I'm going to throw that away because I want that. All of that went away. Wow. And I'm thankful for that portion of it, to be honest.
What was the time horizon from he passed when you were 12, 13?
Mm-hmm. No, he was 12.
My fault. Yeah. You were 10. You were 10, correct? Yes. 10, 11? Mm-hmm. At what age were you when you came to this realization of, I need to be who I am. I need to make decisions for me. I can no longer rely, because there's your brother being taken away, but like you said, the feeling, the dependency doesn't necessarily leave when they leave physically. Right. So how was it to work through that? Like at what age was this when you became comfortable? Because that's what it sounds like. You became comfortable making decisions on your own.
My 8th grade year.
Okay.
And to be honest, it was because my mom got a lump sum settlement from his death. So you got to realize my whole life was poverty stricken up to that point. Wow. Like there was a point in our lives where we were almost on, and it was just me, my mom, and my brother. Like, because there were little periods where the sisters would go their separate ways. Like, I'm on my feet. Let's go get our own crib. Well, she went and got an apartment, the Pines Apartments in Shreveport, off Line Avenue. And luckily, for some reason, it was Christmas, and we went to like my grandparents' house. And so my mom was like, hey, we're going to go back to the house the day after Christmas. Well, the day after Christmas, we went back to the apartment. The apartment had burned down, but we were gone. So our life was poverty. Wow. We kind of was on our way up. Yeah. And then I'm talking, we probably was 2 months away from kind of being on, I felt like, in my mind. Apartment burned down, lost everything, literally. Yeah. So now we back at square 1-0. So boom, the sisters moved back in together. Boom, we back a unit again. Which again, back then it looked terrible, man. But that's more exposure to my aunt. That's more exposure to my cousins. That's more of a, we looking out for each other in these streets real tough, because it was, man, you needed every set of eyes on you could get. Wow. So now, fast forward, my brother passed away. My mom get this lump. And I felt like, looking back on it, she kind of was on some, well, I'm gonna shower you with this money to help you feel better about this person that's been with you your whole entire life.
Yeah.
And that adult vision looking back, I was like, man, I lost somebody that literally was with me every day of my entire life.
Yeah.
Like from the time I was born to the time he passed away, there was never a day we didn't be around each other, not one single time. Like he didn't go away to a camp or nothing.
Yeah.
We literally, so she kind of was buying these clothes and that kind of put me in a whole different mind frame 8th grade year at my middle school. So now it was, you know, I'm a notable athlete at this point.
And you fresh.
And I'm fresh.
Right,
You hear me?
right.
So now I'm fresh and I'm playing this. So now my attention kind of on girls at this time. And now it's like, but it was good because the kinds of girls that was around that kept me focused. You know, that was like, hey, we finna do this work. We got to get this studying. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You got to go to football practice. You got to do this. So I feel like my whole path of my life it could have been bad. Yeah. Like for real. It was designed to be bad, but the right pieces kept getting placed.
Where did you get this spirit of like overcoming? Like it's coming through in your conversation?
Yes.
Like where does that come from? Because that's a lot to deal with as a youth, and you had a lot of opportunities to be resentful, but it comes out like grateful in every way, the way you process stuff. Like, was that your mom? Was it the women you liked?
Yes.
Your dad?
My mom, my aunt, a bunch of strong women in my family. Believe it or not, I have a team of surrogate mothers. Like my homeboys that I grew up with, their moms took us in. So it's not like Miss Mitchell, it's Mama Mitchell.
Gotcha.
Or it's Mama Ruby. And these women, they treated me like I was their son as well. You know what I mean? And that meant a lot to me. So I felt like I had a lot, my Aunt Katie, I had a lot of women that I felt like I'd feel like trash if I let them down. You know what I mean? So they were always talking about religion and God and focus and purpose. Then I have an uncle, my Uncle Lou T. He was always sliding me little nuggets, you know, talking to me about life. He's one of the reasons I went to Southern University. He went to Southern first, and then he came out, and his whole outlook on life was different. He came out, and he was like, I'm a Moor now. And I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
He was like, man, sit down. So he'll slide me something. Nothing too heavy too soon. He'll always hit me with something and walk away. Hit me with something and walk away. So I felt like I had so many people giving me different perspectives. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, how you look at something, son? Yeah. And they telling me these little stories, like, I don't want to get into them, but like, you know, the story about the bird that's freezing in the snow, and then you got the cow that come along and the wolf. But, right. So they giving me all of this stuff where if you look at something a certain way, it's going to either make you or break you. Yeah. So now a lot of stuff that I felt like I went through, don't get me wrong, I went through periods of why this, why now? You know, you're mad, you ask for something or you pray for something and it don't work out. Yeah. The frustration, you know, I had a bad temper. I fought, man. I went, like I said, I went to all of those schools, man. I fought and fought and fought and fought. And so what that ended up being was my first day at a new school, somebody played with me, we fight. Now everybody, my friends after that, they like, whoa, don't play with dude like that. But my sense of humor kicked in. Gotcha. And I learned consequence and repercussion. Yeah, it's real. Right. Counselors at my schools, they like, oh, come here, little black boy, let me talk to you. And these black women. So these black women pulling me to the side, like, listen, and that's the importance of intervention in these youngsters, man. I remember every woman, every person, every teacher, every uncle that pulled me and was like, listen, your temper a little bad. Yeah. You need that stuff there. Once you react to something, you can't take it back. Correct. So my first reaction was always, it was like, count, breathe, walk away, come back. If you still feel like that, then there's a good possibility that's what it is. Yeah. I started doing that. I started laughing and joking more. And then I fell in love with how that made people feel. Yeah. It made me feel good. It made them feel good. And that kept a lot of confusion down.
As though, so you mentioned that you had a bit of an anger problem. Yes. How far did that go? Did that ever put you in a place where, life could have really taken a terrible turn?
Absolutely.
Can you share any? Well, we need all of them.
Yeah. Well, and it's not even like it was never life or death. Maybe once, but mainly stuff like I feel like people can't talk to me a certain way. You know what I mean? I've been in the military. I took that into the military. I kind of was like, man,
how'd that work out?
Didn't work too well. It did, but it didn't. Because again, my personality, my blessing always been my personality and my sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know, it was to the point where I don't really have enemies. Like even to this day, I don't have people that be like, man, I hate that dude. If they do, they hiding real well. But because it's a matter of, man, you just can't stay mad at dude. He always laughing about something. Same thing with my drill sergeants. There was a time they told us don't do X, Y, Z. I felt like it didn't make sense. I always been a leader. So the other cats kind of like, man, they told us to do X, Y, Z. Why are you not doing it? I don't feel like that makes sense.
So there's something that we have in common, but it was more impactful to you because you actually went in the military.
Yes.
That's why I couldn't go in the military because I'm the wild guy. It got to make sense.
Yeah, it got to make sense.
18, I mean, all that stopped at like 13.
Yes.
Right? I still did it because I didn't want to get beat down.
Right.
But like the whole, like, no, why?
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 Why we got to sit here 3 days and
Right.
I only have a canteen full of water?
Right.
Like, make this make sense to me.
Right.
Because I said so. You sure right. Wait till they leave.
Yeah.
So then when they leave and they like, hey, man, what are you doing? I'm not sitting out here.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting out here. So then I kid you not, the whole platoon followed me because we were truck drivers. We jumped in the trucks, drove it all the way back to where they had lights and domino tables, and we sat down and played dominoes. And man, it took them people 2 days to come find us. They rolled up on us. They furious. They like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? I was like, listen, I told y'all that didn't make sense. It took y'all 2 days to come find us, and all we had is this canteen of water.
Jeez.
So
you got sports.
Yes.
You got the military. Now we got the rest of your life.
Yes.
Like, let's walk through, I guess, what ages were you in the military and what branch?
I was in the Army. I graduated high school in 96. Funny story about that, man. Another story of my life. I know I got a million of these long stories.
That's it.
But graduated high school and misguided. Nobody talked to me about college. Nobody talked to me about funding. Nobody talked to me about plan.
Yeah.
What are you doing tomorrow? Nobody asking these questions. I'm finna graduate high school. Nobody has asked me, what are you doing after school?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Which seems like very basic questions as you would assume any adult that cared about you or not would ask at some
And I'm
point.
surrounded by educated people.
Wow.
And they assuming because I'm moving so smart in school and I got this GPA and I'm this much of an athlete and this, they thinking, man, he finna get a full ride scholarship or he gonna get an academic scholarship. Man, I had a 4.1 GPA at some point in high school. So they were like, oh, he good. Nah, what I'll do with this?
Yeah.
So now, again, one of my things is I'm in the ROTC, so they done brought the recruiters in.
Gotcha.
The recruiter, like, he asking questions my family not asking. What you doing after high school? Man, I'm going to college. That's what you're supposed to say.
Right.
How you gonna pay for it?
Yeah.
You know how much college costs? Trying to be discouraging, break you to rebuild you. Well, man, if you don't have the money,
That's what it is.
I've got a solution for you because you obviously want to go. So I went into the Army National Guard.
Gotcha.
Because I felt like it was the best of both worlds. I'm going, they're going to pay for it, and it's part-time.
Time off. Yeah.
Bet. So I'm 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer. I'm like, bet, run it. So I go to basic training, AIT. I get back, it's 2 weeks too late to go to school. But all my partners, they done went to the colleges, the respective colleges they going to go to. Well, when I come back, a few of my partners down at Southern in Baton Rouge. Hey, man, I'm going to come kick it with y'all 1 weekend. I slide down there. I stay a whole week. I come back and tell everybody I'm going to Southern.
Yeah.
So I kid you not. They got out that fall. They went in for the fall of, what is that, 97, 96? No, that's the fall 96, go into fall.
Spring 97.
Spring 97. Well, I have to start spring of 97 because I got back too late for the fall of 96. I kid you not. This is how unguided and misguided I was. My homeboy, Travis, he was like, hey, I told him, I said, hey, when you go back to school, I'm going to catch a ride with you. I packed a duffel bag full of clothes. That's how I went to college. I got in the car with him when he was going back to school for the spring, jumped in the car with him with a duffel bag. Catch this ride. We slid down there. He told me, he was like, listen, you got to go in the mini dome right there, fill out this paperwork, do this. He was like, have you done your admissions to get in college? Nah. I tell you what, I asked him, what was your major last semester? What did you do? What's your classes? Give me all of that. He was like, it's physics. Bet, give it to me. So I went in there and told the people my major physics. This is my schedule that I want. Da, 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 da. He was like, all of that's full.
That's super aggressive.
I laugh and joke my way to the front of the line with the women at, and laugh and joke with the women at the school. They override everything, let me in. Bet. So now, but I got to stay in the back, in the projects. That's what we call Jones Hall back then, man. The freshman male dorm at Southern was the projects off Good Times. I kid you not, back then. They plush now. So my partner, them in the honors college, in the honors dorm, they living like they in condos. I was like, how you get in here? What we doing? He was like, man, you got to get in the honors college, da-da-da-da-da. I went, took a test, got in the honors college, went up there. They told me honors college full. Man, I don't want these extra classes. I did this to get in this plush dorm.
Right.
So that's kind of how my life went with that, man. It's just seat of my pants. I caught a ride with my homeboy to go to college, man, and
I'm
just took his major.
Go. I'm just gonna go to college.
I'm just gonna go.
It's kind of how my oldest is, but that's a whole nother story. Like, have you registered?
Yeah,
they got to send me an email.
It's just gonna happen. Yeah.
It's not how it works. Yeah. So let's take a quick break. Hear from a sponsor. We're gonna come back and get into your life after. As you're maturing, right? As we're getting rid of some of that anger and starting to make some moves in life and talk about your family and all that, we'll be right back.
Yes.
What's good, fam? I know you're watching the video right now, but I just wanted to highlight that Tate Whalen is a brand new sponsor to the podcast. TATEWHALUN. Go to the website. You'll find exquisite timepieces. You'll find glasses. You'll find very well crafted beaded bracelets. Black owned, responsibly managed. I purchased several items from them. This is not me reading from a script. I stand beside this company and I wanted to share that with you. Now, when you get to checkout, after you put everything in your cart that your heart desires, use the code DSP, THEDSP. You'll get 20% off. He'll know that I sent you. God bless. Back to the show. All right, we're back. So we figured out that college wasn't the route. Went into the military, gave us a little bit of a little foreshadowing on how your military career went. At some point, you got out. Then what?
Family, man. I started dating this young lady.
That's how it always starts.
Yeah, I started dating this young lady. She was from Baton Rouge, but she went to school in New Orleans.
Okay.
So I'm going to school in Baton Rouge. So I'm working. You know,
what's the distance to give people orientation?
Oh, from Baton Rouge to New Orleans is an hour drive.
Okay,
roughly. So because my last story, I'm in the project building, if you will, in the back. And once I found out I couldn't get in the honors dorm, I stayed on campus one semester. After that, I went and got an apartment. I was like, this is not for me. So I went and got an apartment. So now I got to work though. So a whole nother dynamic. So now because I'm working. The place I'm working, this young lady fall up in the spot. I was working in the mall. She fall up in the spot. I meet her. You know, we date, but kind of like as friends, you know what I mean? So Then we get serious. Boom. Hey, I'm pregnant.
Ain't that how it go?
So now I'm in school. I got this 1-bedroom apartment. She pregnant. So I was like, she's sick though. Like she can't function. She's so sick. So I was like, here, come to the crib. So she come to the crib. She bedridden in my crib for 2 weeks now. Yeah. So now that kind of turned into, well, I can't just be with the move around or do something or go call your dad. We didn't know what this was going to be, how this was going to go at the time. So then we look up. Finally, she started getting better, but she on her second trimester now. So now it's, you live with me now. You've been here 4 months. You know what I mean? So now I have the baby. We living together. Now we're in a serious committed relationship. Now that's in 01. So then in 02, her dad died. 03, she and I get married. 04, we have my second son. And I'm talking, that's how the years flowing, just like that.
Yeah.
So now 04, we have my second son. Then boom, we moved to Houston from Baton Rouge. So she and I moved to Houston. End up building a house. I start a business. Things not going so well. You know, we wasn't seeing eye to eye. Boom, she has a daughter. We have a daughter together. My third child with her. Well, now we full-fledged going into a split though. Like we weren't even together when we conceived my daughter.
Gotcha.
So now she's pregnant with my daughter. My mom died. Wow. All of this is like do. So I move out of the house in Houston, and her and the kids are there. So I'm still doing what I can to try to float the house along. She's not working. You know what I mean? The whole time we were together, we had an agreement to be that she would be a stay-at-home mom.
Right.
Once the baby of that time turns 2, go get a job.
Gotcha.
Well, that didn't work. That wasn't how that planned out. Yeah. You know what I mean? So she didn't work fine. I'm not bashing her for it. Yeah. Just kind of putting the story out.
Sure.
So now, at this point, I leave, but I still have this household that I've been solely responsible for.
Yeah.
Which is fine. So now, floating the house, and I'm at the crib. I go get a crib in Shreveport, and I go get a crib in Dallas. So now I got 3 households that I'm floating. And so now she's dating her now husband, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now it's, hey, can you come watch the kids? I got something to do this weekend. That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Give me time with my kids. So I flip back to Houston. She dip out, stay gone for the weekend, come back. We swap out. Well, now this rage of I don't want nothing to do with you. Don't do this. Don't do that. And directly feeding this to my oldest son. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to have adult conversations with you that don't involve children.
Right. But
you're persistent with trying to bring and drag the children into the conversation. You feel like this the last, in my opinion, I can't speak on this person's behalf,
right,
but in my opinion, this was more of this the last stronghold I got on you. This the last thing you care about. This the last thing that hurts you or bothers you. So I'm going to use this in order to make you hurt how I hurt.
So that's unfortunately a very common dynamic, and we still clear bashing either way. It's not to drag anybody else's story into it, but can you talk about how that impacted the relationship that you had with your son? How did he? What age is he at this time when that messaging started?
2010. He was born so he was 9. He was 9 years old.
Wow, that's early.
Yeah. So, and I'm talking, not to be too explicit, but things like, I'm out of town. So you're calling me on the phone, but you push him outside the front door and lock the door and have him beating on the door crying to get back in the house.
Wow. And
saying, ask your dad to come help you while he not coming to open the door. This is the kind of stuff you're doing, and I'm listening to you do it. You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So now this tearing me down, breaking me down. I can only imagine what it's doing to a 9-year-old child.
Yeah.
He's 9. My son under him, 6. So you got 9, 6, and a newborn girl.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. 3
children in the house, and this what's going on.
Yeah.
Which was why, to me, that was the final straw that I had to leave prior to that, because now trying to get physical things to happen in front of the kids. You want altercation.
Yeah.
You want confusion. You want to try to make me touch you or grab you.
Yeah.
And I'm not with it.
Yeah.
So you chest bumping and throwing stuff, and you're doing a lot of things that, and the kids right here.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, hey, I try to go to another room. You bring the kids with you when you try to kick something else off. So now I leave. It's like, well, I have to leave.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing this.
And it sets the expectation for the kids that is normal, so it's easily duplicated throughout their life because they see that as a norm. So when you finally left, what ages were your children?
9.
Oh, so the exact same time.
That year. that year it kind of spiraled out of control. Like that 09, 2010.
Yeah.
Because that's when my daughter was born. 2010, it kind of went really bad.
Yeah.
Like she was pregnant, as a matter of fact, with my daughter when it really kind of went downhill, man.
Yeah.
So now you got all of this going on. I leave, and now my oldest son, which is now 21 years old, I haven't laid eyes on him. This is 2022.
Wow.
I haven't laid eyes on him, man, 7 years. 7 years.
Wow.
He doesn't talk to me. I had a cell phone that I bought him. I put him on my plan and everything.
Yeah.
He was probably, I don't know, man, probably 11, 12 years old by then. So I put him on my cell phone plan. This is my means of talking to you.
Right.
Not answering my calls, not responding to texts. So now this goes on for like a year, maybe 2 years. So I send him a text. I'm talking to the mom. She's remarried prior to me. I'm remarried now.
Right.
So she remarried. So I'm reaching out to her and the husband like, listen, life lesson. Because now I'm sending Christmas gifts for all of the kids, birthday gifts. When I'm coming to town, I'm bringing them, but you're like, hey, he don't want to see you, so just give it to me. I'll give it to him. Mm-hmm. This kind of stuff going on. But you have a phone, and I have you on this phone plan.
Yeah.
Consequences and repercussions, son. So I told both of them. They took offense to the statement, but hey, teach him to be a responsible young male. If you don't deal with somebody, don't deal with them at all. You're not good enough for my conversation. You're not good enough for my money or my gifts.
Right.
Refuse it all. Don't be a user.
Right.
So I sent him a message on the cell phone like, listen, hey, we need to have a conversation. I don't think that it's good that I'm paying for this phone. You're not talking to me, not receiving my calls, etc. If I don't hear from you by noon tomorrow, I'm going to cut the phone off. I didn't hear from him. I turned the phone off. Who calls me 2 hours later? The mom.
Yeah.
Did you turn his phone off? You didn't have any input.
Right.
When we were talking about how we could avoid this train wreck.
Yeah.
There's nothing to talk about now.
Yeah, I can see, I can imagine that could get messy.
Yes.
And I don't, this is not a platform
to
come on here and throw up everything.
Right.
But how did it impact you? Because and I'm not trying to parallel any of my experiences because I've been in an experience, but I don't deal well with things and people associated with it when I don't want to be around it no more. And I kind of regress, and I can make, in my mind, people cannot exist.
Right.
It's not healthy, right? And I've grown out of that to a large degree. But what did it do to you? Because this is like you're in manhood now, right? And you got these. You have to be a certain way because you have to be the bigger person, or you chose to be the bigger person. How did that impact you in the years to come? And like, how did it affect your ability to start another relationship?
Well, it was hurtful, to be honest. A lot of pain, and there were, like, I went through a whole era of certain types of songs or music or movies I couldn't even watch.
Trigger.
And a lot of people don't even know that. Like, there was, I couldn't watch it. It'll make me tear up, or I'm about to cry, or make me cry, and I felt like it just was a cycle, and I couldn't do that anymore. So I started to suppress. I started cutting and suppressing and stop acknowledging, stop talking about my family that would call and ask, how the kids? I would cut the conversation. I don't want to talk about it. Not because I didn't love my kids or that my kids didn't exist. It was too hurtful for me to acknowledge it or face it.
Yeah.
And then that honestly helped me start to look at other issues or baggage I had from my brother dying, from my dad. That's when I found out that I kind of resented my dad about the whole vehicle situation, about my brother dying.
Yeah.
A bunch of stuff that I felt like I suppressed and packed my whole life. People were like, man, because even to this day, I don't watch TV. And people be like, how? Well, truth be told, it's too emotional. You know what I mean? Like, people like, man, it's like you don't have any emotions. You're not attached to anything. It's like you don't acknowledge. Like, if a dude too soft, you kind of like, I don't really do that. Well, it's not out of, I feel like this person is disgusting or I'm this Neanderthal. It's a protection. You know what I mean? Like, I have a lot of stuff that I feel like I haven't dealt with that I don't want to deal with because I don't want to say I don't know how to handle it. I just don't want to be vulnerable like that. I don't want to break down like that.
Yeah.
So it's running. You know what I mean? So I don't watch these emotional movies and certain songs that bring me directly back to thoughts and memories I have with my children at a certain time.
Yeah.
I don't acknowledge it. So now she don't exist. But I yearn for a relationship with my kids. Yeah. Like I found out my son goes to college right here. Wow. 10 minutes away from my house. I found that out. I was able to find some little pictures here and there to kind of see the growth of my children because she don't communicate with me. I haven't gotten any of that. But, and again, I'm not bashing her.
Yeah.
This is just me talking about my dealings and how it affected me now. So when I started to finally get back to dating, I met a lot of great women, in my opinion, but I wasn't open to settling down or taking anyone serious like that. Yeah. And so I'm meeting women and I'm kind of like, hey, listen, up front, let me tell you this, I'm not available like that. I'm not doing that anymore. I've been married. I'm never going to get married again. That was my platform. I felt like I was never going to get married again. I was telling people that. My family laughed. I have this one homegirl, man. She was like, cut it out. You're going to get married. Watch. And so I met my current wife. Yeah. Just met her, you know. I didn't expect anything. She didn't expect anything. She had been married before. I had been married before. We went on a couple of dates and hit it off. Yeah. And I kid you not, my family jokingly was like, man, y'all on the fast track. I think we got married. Ugh. Don't check my stats, but I want to say the first year after we met. And that's like, for me, that was pushing. Yeah. That was on the gas. So I met her, we dated, and then we got serious. And, you know, she had a son already. Mm-hmm. So when I met her, she had one son, you know, because from the first marriage. Yeah. So now I meet her, I meet him. So now that dynamic is different. She's not coming at me up talking about relationship or settling down. That was the difference. A lot of people be like, what made her different? Or how did you do that? Just kind of let things happen. Yeah. And they happened. Yeah. You know, you can want something too bad and that'll run it off. Or you could be too, I'm on to see what this is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. No expectations. And it just naturally developed. Because now every day you seeing stuff and stuff happening. And you kind of like, I like how the day went. I enjoyed the day as you reflect at the end of the day. Because that's something I do. I reflect at the end.
What can you pinpoint what changed in you? Not, you said it wasn't, people were asking what was it about her, but can you pinpoint what changed in you that allowed that to happen? Or still a mystery?
No, honestly, I think it was almost a burnout. Because obviously after the split happened with my first wife and I was so bitter, I was bitter. I felt like women were shady, man, like on some shade. I felt like I had been lied to and bamboozled and took fast and you painted this picture like it was going to be this. So I kind of was, I serial dated, you know what I mean? I went and bought me a motorcycle. I went and got me 2 cribs. So I kind of was like, man, whatever.
You got this thing where you do cribs like in multiples. Like, like where that come from? You just like the convenience of where you want to be here, you want to be there.
Right, because by the time you pay for a hotel room 3 times in a month.
That's rent.
And me, I always had good connections. So I had a connection that I would call and be like, hey, I'm going to be in XYZ city. Yeah. They'll find like this top tier apartment and be like, hey, found you a deal. You can sign this 1-year lease. It's going to be $600 a month. Well, hey, you stay in a hotel, you know, 4 times, 3 times in a month. That's $600.
Smash.
So I was like, bet. So I'm staying in $2,500 apartments for $600 a month. Man, give me that and give me that. I had my own business back then, so and even to this day. So I'm working. The money is coming. Yeah. So I was like, this is easy. Give it to me.
It's all good. All right. Well, let's jump out of player mode. And get back to where you are now. So when you were talking about you came into this new relationship with the son, I automatically started assuming something, but that's not my. I don't have an authority to do that. Can you kind of pull a thread on how it made you feel to have access to a father-son relationship, if I'm not overstepping.
No, that's not overstepping at all. I enjoyed it. Because what happened was, initially, I didn't feel like, oh, he finna replace my sons. You know, because I have 2 sons, and that I was an everyday part of their lives, and now that's been removed from my life.
Yeah.
So now a lot of people say, man, you got just another son back. I didn't look at it like that because it made me feel guilty to even hear people say it, because I felt like people were almost saying I threw them away and replaced them with him.
True.
And it's not the case. I felt like it was an addition to.
Gotcha.
So what happened was, because I was so burned out on streets, it put me in a space of openness, and she showed up right in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now her and him, it was a sense of normalcy, a sense of love.
Yeah.
So they welcomed me and they enjoyed being around me. And that was a blessing because he was as open to me as she was, saying her son. So we bonded really quickly.
Yeah.
So now we hit it off. We get married. We have 2 more sons together. So now there's 3 sons in my household. And there was a point where my middle son from my first marriage, I was still able to get him in the summers. So her son, which is now my oldest son in my house, and my middle boy from my first marriage, they hit it off real well. They got real close. That was a bonus for me, man, because it gave him somebody to kind of hang out with, because in essence, he was the only child for a while. And so now your 2 little brothers come, but they babies. You know what I mean? They years apart. So now you have somebody that's your age, because they're 1 year apart. So I saw him blossom. I saw him open and have conversations and interact like I'm normally not able to see. It's very quiet, very reserved around adults. But I've noticed around kids and his peers, he opens up. And I love that, man. So I was able to see that. And I was kind of like, okay, we need to cater more to that. Like his male cousins, that's his age, or his school buddies or friends, like make an active effort. Like, hey, what your boys doing? Let's see if we can link y'all up and y'all go do something. And I feel like that changed me. I have so many pivotal points in my life, and that was a huge one for me, because I was bitter, dry, and detached. And then I feel like she kind of brought love and attention and affection back, to where I started watching things that I couldn't watch. I started listening to songs I couldn't listen to before. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like almost a healing of not everybody out to get you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Have you gotten it all out yet?
No, I don't think so. No, because even to this day, we joke about, even her family, her friends, my friends, they still joke about how much of a hard exterior that I have about certain topics and issues. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a lot, man. That's you. I am still amazed at the lens through which you see life is so positive. I'm not saying switch, but that is a major takeaway for the listening audiences that it doesn't have to be as bad as it is.
Right.
Like, your perspective has a lot to do with that. I know it's easier said than done, but that's your approach to everything after that. As much as we were able to discuss in this compressed timeline,
right.
I commend you. That I don't know if I'm there yet, and luckily I haven't had the challenges to figure out if I'm there yet, and I don't necessarily want those, but I think it is a very big deal to, number one, admit to yourself that you're bruised, you got some challenges, and I need to work through this stuff. These things set me off. These are triggers.
Right.
And then again, working through it enough, being open to it at the right time, and shout out to your wife for not forcing anything. And that's not an inference that all women do that.
Right.
That's acknowledging that partner to partner don't force. Right. Let things kind of happen.
Let it unfold.
Let it unfold. All right. So we're gonna take another quick break, and then we're gonna come back and wrap it up, because I know you have some mentorship objectives and aspirations and some charitable stuff that I want to get into, because I think it's fitting with your experience that you're qualified to go and have these conversations.
Yes.
And I definitely want to look at how we can partner, but we're going to take a final break and we'll be right back. What's good, fam? I hope you guys are enjoying this episode as much as I enjoyed having the conversation. Look, a couple of folks have reached out asking how can they support more. They listen, they like the videos, but they said, hey, we want something tangible. I said, cool. Now we got merch. The Dear Son Podcast tees are loaded to the website, thedearsonpodcast.com. In your upper left-hand corner, you'll see a drop-down option that says There's More. That's where you'll find the t-shirts. So if you feel so impressed, shop with your man, help support this podcast, and push it around the world because it's going there. Appreciate you guys. Now back to the show. All right, we're back. Conversation has been fulfilling to me, and listen to all this. Sometimes when you see me get stuck, I'm really processing the information because this is the first time we're having this conversation,
Right.
And it's hitting me as hopefully as it's hitting you. But we want to switch gears and talk about what do you do with all of this experience, this knowledge, this awareness, this empathy for people, for boys specifically that are hurting. You have some aspirations of I don't want to call it something that it's not. What is your intent to kind of add value in that space?
I try not to let a young male pass by, and I don't give him something, and that's because that's how it was given to me.
Right.
My old heads, my uncles, the older guys in my neighborhood, you couldn't walk by an elder male when I was a kid, and they didn't stop you and at least ask you, what you doing in school?
Yeah.
What is this? Do you know what this means? Do you know this? Or hit you with a math problem or something. So now I feel like that's a big lack in today's times. You know, I used to run a trucking business, and now I see a lot of guys. They think the easiest thing they can go do is I'm gonna go to truck driving school, get my CDL, and I'm gonna jump in the truck and I'm gonna run a trucking company. I'll ask them 5 quick questions right quick off the top that I know are mistakes that I made when I first got into trucking.
Right.
And their answers are exactly what I would have done when I made the mistakes that I made.
Right.
So these are the things we always want to get paid for every single thing that we do and know.
Yeah.
We got to give back though.
Yeah.
You have to donate. You have to give with no expectation.
Yeah.
And the return you'll get on that long term, it'll far outweigh what you would have charged for that information. Just give it to him.
Yeah.
And you might be keeping this brother from killing somebody.
That's
Keep this
true.
brother out of prison. Make his business flourish, and then he gonna pay it forward and give it to somebody else and maybe help somebody else's business.
Yeah.
He might come back around, and then now I have some kind of project floating and he can invest in my project.
Yeah.
I've given him the tools to do such, and he already believed in me because when I didn't even know him, I gave him something and didn't expect anything in return. So I kind of operate in that realm now because now that I feel like I'm feeding the universe and the universe is gonna feed me back for it. So little kids misguided, man, like opportunity to just change something. Like if something bad goes, if you fail a test or you don't get accepted into the college you want to go to, or you don't make it into this, or you think because now you're being ridiculed by a certain group of people or friends, that age group, their life is right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they don't look at 10, 15, 20 years from now. That don't exist yet.
Yeah.
All I know is tomorrow I got to go back and get in front of these people that laughed at me yesterday. I didn't like how I felt yesterday. How am I going to deal with it tomorrow? We have to help them understand, listen, this happens. It's different for them, though, because now social media and all of these platforms, now thousands of people saw the mistake instead of the 2, 3 that were there. So I get it. We can't relate to that, but we still give them the same little nuggets, the same seeds. Like, listen, at the end of the day, 5 years from now, this not going to matter.
Yeah.
And that's the part that the mistakes I made in my young male childhood life was I felt like there was no tomorrow. My mom talking to me about, hey, your credit need to be squared away. I'm not paying that. They don't know where I'm at. They're not going to find me.
Right.
10 years later, it was right there knocking at the door. Like, hey, you still owe this. What we doing? These are the types of lessons that I give these young women too. I say young males a lot. The young women need assistance. They need help. But these young men, man, I feel like they so lost right now because who do they look to? They looking at TV, they looking at these rap videos, they looking at music. And not to say all rap is bad or even bashing that industry, but I'm just saying that there's so many models out right now to show kids or young males to be destructive.
Yeah.
It's like they're giving them the recipe for self-destruction, but nobody's giving you any type of guidance to say, hey, I want to be great. I'm going to be great. I'm going to be wealthy. I'm going to be healthy.
Right. Healthy.
Like, focus on your body, your health. Because if you have $300 million, but you only healthy enough to live 2 months, what you going to do with the money? Why do you have it?
Man, that's so true. But the information that they have access to outpaces any conversation that we can have.
Absolutely.
And that's what sometimes I use paralyzed a lot because it's true. It paralyzes me in thought of, I don't know that there's a balance, but there has to be a constant reinforcement of planting that seed, as you said, right? Because one thing I try to tell my kids is like, when you get in that situation, the only thing you're going to be able to pull out is something that's already planted in you.
Already planted. It has to already be there.
Yeah, if it ain't there, it ain't there. Always call me, but there are things in life that I can't even prepare you for because of how quickly information and situations are presented to them, and it doesn't even have to go viral. I mean, it's enough. If there was a fight at school in high school, the other high schools would know about it by the end of the week.
Right.
If somebody's getting loud in the hallway, the U.S. knows about it as they're yelling in the hallway now. Right then. It's crazy. Live. It's real time telling.
Yes.
And that's the piece that, as much of a value as the internet and what it's done to change the world, it is such a disadvantage. And my kids
equally hindering it.
Yeah, it's such a disadvantage. Like I know where you are.
Yes.
And if you're not with your phone, then we got a whole different problem.
Oh,
but that's a whole nother thing.
But it goes back to principles. Like even I may not know the scenarios or the situations you're gonna face, but I can give you a set of principles that you can stand on to where something you're gonna face is gonna fall within one of these guidelines or parameters. Yep. You know what I mean? Because the biggest thing that I try to convey to these little kids and youngsters and even adults, because we're guilty of it as well, is you don't know what you don't know until you know don't know it.
And it's late.
Right. And it's too late.
Super late.
So if you go and say, hey, I want to be a welder. If you've never been in that industry or anything to do with it or know the background, you don't know the first question to ask in order to say, hey, I want to be a welder. Great.
Quick aside, stick welding in the shipyard, welding school. I did not tape up my pocket. That's what you're supposed to do when you have a long sleeve.
See?
A piece of cold slag fell in my pocket. I don't know how it did that, but I'm welding. And I had a good bead too. So just bear with us. I had a good, I think it was a 1/4 inch or 5/16 bead. Yeah. And I'm going and my chest is hot. I'm like, now I'm dancing. Now I'm dancing. Anyhow, it's whatever. But yeah, so how do you, I understand the mission. Yes. Have you thought through the mechanics of the architecture? Is that still kind of in the works? Or is it the mission to be practical, in passing information? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm open, and I'm not ashamed to say I don't have a plan in place right now of outreach. Sure. So far, it's kind of been hand to hand, if you will. Yep. You know what I mean? Like people that I directly come across, and then I talk to this person. And it's like, hey, now they have people calling me, or they'll send people to me. That's kind of been what's been going on. Like even I've had a couple people say, hey, I got a group of young males because I have some influential people that are in position that they are, they're educators or they're deans at universities or they have outreach and things like that. And they're like, hey, you can come in here and you can have this platform. And I want you to talk to these kids about some of the things you've done. Or I've got these kids that's saying they want to do this or they want to do X, Y, Z. And I know you've done it. That's the other benefit is I feel like I've lived 30 lives. I've done, listen.
You told us about 12.
Military, hood life. I had our house broken into as a child before we come in and everything all over the place because somebody broke in the crib. Street life, you name it. Church life, spirituality. That's a whole nother conversation.
Sure, sure.
So there's always have something to offer. Yeah. And even if you don't, if you know one thing, share that one thing. Yeah. So I'm open to that. I'd like to say that some of the networking opportunities that I've had that I didn't necessarily take an opportunity or a chance or advantage of in 2021, I'm absolutely going to take advantage of and moving forward.
There it is.
And I'm not one of these people that's like every year I got this list of goals and then I make it the first week of January, and then come January is the next year. Is the next time I'm talking or even looking back at those goals.
Just dusting them off and putting a new year on it.
Man. So no, absolutely not. But I'm open.
Yeah.
I'm open.
So I am new in the podcast space, but the message is connecting, is getting some traction. I am looking for the opportunities of what organizations to partner with, what opportunities make sense, because unfortunately you got to vet everything, because everybody's intention isn't the same as yours.
Yes.
But I'm in that same space too. I know the lofty thing that I'm not going to say it's lofty. I know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it. Right. I know I'm going to LA. I don't know which streets to turn on, but like that kind of, I know the destination, but I don't know the route specifically. But I would be interested in continuing the conversation with you to see where there are some synergies. Better men, better fathers, man. A lot of it has to do with the work on us first before we go out here and passing on our trauma and giving them the best, worst advice that we have to offer. So, I'm definitely a fan of that. But I definitely want to stay connected. I want to keep you connected to the audience as it grows, because there may be somebody, and it is surprising me how even with the small reach, the dots are connecting, right? The right person heard it, sent it to their cousins, uncle, brother, mother-in-law, and then things are happening. There's so much more to talk about, and I say this at the end of every one. Like, you can't get it all with one guest. Like, when the conversation is great, so I would be very grateful if you would come back on at some point, and we could kind of chronicle the success, right? Where we're finding synergies, we're finding partnerships. If there's something you want to promote or get out there, definitely want to keep you as part of the close friend group to this podcast.
Please do. I insist.
Anything else you want to leave? Social media? Any final thoughts?
Not yet. Social media wise, because everything will be personal, and I'm not necessarily looking for an audience personally. But as the podcast grows and things move forward, I absolutely want to be an active participant in that.
Perfect.
So as we have things that are directly related to getting that message out, guiding our youth, guiding other men how to be better men so that they can pass that knowledge and information on. As we get that platform larger and larger, then I'll be like, hey, this social media platform is attached to that. And I'd be more willing to get behind that and spread that. So,
all right. Well, I appreciate your time and your information, sharing the meaningful stories. As podcasts, we go through guests that don't really have meaningful things to say, right? And that's not a shot at anybody. None of those have been released. But I definitely appreciate it. Let me address the audience right quick. My podcast platform listeners, if you're on Anchor, if you're on Spotify, Apple, please make sure you're following. Make sure you have on Apple, it's a check mark or plus sign. Make sure you follow whatever's applicable on that platform and set the auto downloads. That way, when I drop something on the audio, it comes right to your phone. So the next time you're in the airport or your Wi-Fi goes out and you need to binge listen, I'm right there. It doesn't hurt you at all. For those that are on YouTube, was good. Appreciate you guys checking in for the visual experience. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're liking, sharing, all of the things. I am not going to extend this any longer. I appreciate you guys. God bless you. Peace.
The Dear Son podcast is produced by D. John's Live Studios. All rights reserved. Don't forget to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time.